Now, I tell that story for a few reasons, and I certainly want to tell this story to this group, and I'll tell you why. Sometimes it does feel as if the government's taking 95% of our money. Quite frankly, given the struggles that we all go through, sometimes it feels like your job's taking 95% of your energy. Your schooling, your family, whether you're the child in the family or whether you're taking care of your own children in the family, your family's taking 95% of your time. It's like you're being pulled in different directions. And this group, if any group, and I've spoken to a number of graduating groups, but this group of probably all of them, probably knows exactly what I mean by that. Being pulled in different directions and having your money pulled in different directions. But guess what? Even more important than the dollars, even more important than dollars, actually, quite frankly, are the cents. Well, in this case, really is the cents, because I'm not talking about plural. I'm not talking about cents as in pennies, C-E-N-T-S, no. I'm talking about cents as in S-E-N-S-E, a sense of who you are. This night is designed to celebrate what you have done, who you are as a person, and what you have completed, what you have actually done despite the fact that you've worked so hard and have done so many things. Let me tell you something. If I was going to write a letter to God and I was starting a new business, and I'm retired now, so don't worry about that. You know what I mean? I'm like relaxing. But if I did decide to jump back into the foray and start a new business, I wouldn't want the benefit of a nice gift of $100. In fact, you could keep the $1,000, you could keep thousands of dollars. What I would want would be 100 people. 100 people like the people out there. People that I know will work hard. People that are special. People that know how to juggle an awful lot. You know, I'm from a K-12 system. And let me tell you, I'm used to dealing with students who are graduating, quite frankly, with a great deal of help from other people. And Assemblyman Murray is so right to say, boy, we're not only congratulating you for your effort, but all your loved ones, whether it's your mom, your dad, your wife, your husband, your friend, your partner, people who you love, people who have been with you, all of this is a joint achievement, but you have spearheaded that achievement. You have really done it. And quite frankly, when I talk to graduates who are K-12 graduates, when I talk to seniors, very often they've been up and down through some struggles too. Hey, they've come through some snowstorms like the ones we've had over the past few days. But guess what? Mom and Dad, very often, Mom and Dad provided the shelter and the food, and on snowy days like this, the hot cocoa. Mom and Dad would drive them through those storms. Well, guess what? So many of our graduates, in fact, are the moms and dads. So many of our graduates are adults. In fact, all of you are adults. Young adults, older adults, adults. Adults with responsibilities. Adults who come to class and complete this program, and this is not an easy program, complete this program despite the fact that they are the ones that pay the bills. They are the ones that bring hot cocoa to some other family member. They are the ones being torn in different directions because they have adult responsibilities. But despite all of those growing adult responsibilities, they said, this needs to get done. This is good not only for me, this is good for everybody who cares about me. This is good for my family. And somehow or other, you did it. Let me tell you, I must tell you, I have been around an awful lot of people going through school, an awful lot of students, but I am just so duly impressed by all of you. Just the courtesies that you show to each other, the way you help each other. Look, I know I have limited time, so I'll do this with just one more story. So much for the applause and so much for thinking how wonderful you are. You know you are absolutely wonderful, but having offered those congratulations and applause, let me move applause over just a little bit and now enter with advice. If I'm going to give you one piece of advice, it would come in the form of a lesson I learned. Only I didn't learn this lesson in school, I learned it at home. I lost my dad when I was very young. In fact, so young I never really knew him. For 16 years, I grew up in a single-parent home, and then my mom met somebody who became my stepdad. The only dad I've ever known, and you know what? She couldn't have found anyone better. This was a special man, and I want to tell you a little something about him, if you don't mind. He was a foreman, always had a cigar in his mouth. Kind of a tough guy, but yet all heart. I mean, the fact of the matter is, he was kind, he was gracious, he was compassionate, But having not had a male figure, I was like staring at him when he first came into the family. There's nothing that I missed. I observed everything. And one of the things I observed was right up here, his head, his mind. He could fix anything. That was unusual for me. I mean, we always had to figure out how to get somebody to help us out, and I was never really good with that sort of thing. But he could fix anything, and I said, boy, what is he brilliant? I mean, he was a foreman at the wire works, but he could handle electricity, he could handle broken this, broken that. And moreover, not only did I admire the head, I admired the hand. He had powerful hands. In fact, the first time I shook his hand, I was not used to, shaking a guy's hand. And like, he was going like, ow, I'm thinking, shaking his hand, ooh. My mother doesn't shake my hand like that. Mother's hand's kind of creamy and just, how are you? He shook my hand, and a couple of my fingers needed to be bandaged for a day or two. Powerful hands. Not only powerful hands, but skillful hands. Not only did he know how to fix something, but he went about doing it. Well, the longest time passed, and as he grew from man to much older man, and I grew from child to young man, he started to get older. Maybe he'd forget a couple of things. And then he had a stroke. When he had a stroke, he lost a lot of the power on his right side. His arms, certainly his hands. His right hand in particular was very weak. And I noticed, I said, well, Dad, they say you can work at it, but I'm wondering, is this going to change him? Change him? I would see him, and that's why I brought this. I would see him come in with this ball. All the time he held this ball. Not this particular ball, but like a Nerf ball, like a rubber ball. And he'd squeeze it all the time because he knew that he was not going to give up. And if he could get just an ounce of strength back, it would happen if he had to put in as much time as it took. And so he'd work it, and he'd squeeze it, and he'd work it. And all along, whenever he met people, forget about it, you couldn't tell he was suffering from anything. You couldn't tell that he was hurting, because as far as he was concerned, he was still squeezing. He was still working. And people loved to be around him. They loved it before, and they loved after being around him. Bottom line is, after a while, I started to realize something. I started to realize, son of a gun, for all these years, I thought I admired him because of his head. I thought I admired him because of his hand. You know what I really admired him for? His heart. His heart. That's what I admired. On your Hunter pencil, you know what it says on your Hunter pencils? I just stole one this morning. You know what it said? I could use a pencil. I didn't say I was perfect, all right? It says you're going to find yourself from within. I think sometimes you treat mottos as sort of empty little sets of words. Let me give you my little piece of advice, and I've hired many, many people. Quite frankly, when it comes to skills, be delighted that you have picked up a bunch of skills. Essential, that's a given. You better have them. Be delighted that you have picked up a bunch of facts and figures and a chunk of information. Be delighted. Important, absolutely. But you know what the tiebreaker is? Because you see a lot of people that come walking in the office saying, I have a lot of skill. The tiebreaker is your heart. The tiebreaker is the perception of the people who are looking for teammates, for employees. The tiebreaker is whether or not they perceive that they are looking at somebody who works hard, who's passionate, who's compassionate, who not only will bring out energy in themselves, but the way they interact with other people, they'll actually make other people better. Whoa, that's called synergy. That's what people look for. They look for people with a heart. And if I gave you any piece of advice,